Hi friends, welcome to Active Self Protection Extra, here today with Chris Locke from Federal, and I want to talk to you about the 30 Super Carry, and I want to talk to him about it and get some questions answered so that you guys can figure out if it's a cartridge for you.
Mountain Man Medical has comprehensive but compact trauma kits with name brand quality components. They also have discounts available for firearms instructors, teachers, veterans, and others. Please go check them out at get-asp.com/mountainman and thank them for sponsoring today's video.
Chris, I think this is probably kind of the buzz of the show this year, is this new caliber.
Yeah, it's we've been getting a lot of attention for it, and a lot of good feedback. We had it at range day yesterday, so people got to shoot it.
I got to shoot it.
So
we have video of me shooting it. Tell me, okay, so the first question I know a lot of people are asking is, hang on, darn it, Federal, we just want more 9mm right now.
Yeah, right.
And so why is now the right time for a new caliber?
Well, first of all, we're putting out more 9 than we ever have before. The equipment and how it's used is complicated, right? So it's not, you're not going to get less 9 because we're making this. We're utilizing equipment in a way that, for example, a lot of the bullets are coming off of equipment we have in our R&D shop.
Okay.
Right. So it's been a couple years in development. So we actually pitched this at SHOT to a bunch of gun companies a couple years ago, and a lot of people, everybody got it. Everyone we pitched it to is like, we get it. This makes sense. We're on board. Then everything went crazy.
And then the pandemic happens, and everybody's crazy.
And they're like, we're still on board, but we got to figure out how we're going to work it into the schedule because we got to give everybody what they've already bought. So everybody's doing their best to do that. Nighthawk, because they're small and nimble, they move fast. They worked with us right away in the early development, gave us our first guns to shoot, do a proof of concept. So they were early. Smith then was the bigger manufacturer that then stepped up, said, look, this is too good an idea. At that time, they had the Shield Plus coming, right? So they hadn't really, it hadn't gone out to market yet, but they're like, this is going to be a perfect fit for that. With the EZ and the popularity there, it's a good fit. So they were like, okay, we want to be with you at the launch. So they happened to move fastest, right? So a couple years in the making, and it's not a sudden thing, right? Like this, but this started before everything went nuts. We're not going to just stop. And the important thing is the R&D team, they're not getting you the ammo that is already sold, right? They've already done that.
Yeah.
So yeah, they help keep the machines running in the plant, but yeah, they're working on what's coming next. So, yeah.
So tell me the idea behind what makes 30 Super Carry something that you believe is a good round in the industry.
Yeah, so it started with the idea of, okay, with modern technology, modern case, modern powders, modern primer, modern bullet design, like if we're gonna build a defensive round today, not take an old one and kind of tweak it.
I mean, 9mm Luger's over 100 years old.
Right, yeah. So we looked at, okay, from a terminal standpoint, 9 is kind of people consider the minimum, right? There's 2 families.
Yeah, 380 is like marginal. Yeah. 9mm is kind of the smallest. Most people go, yes, acceptable.
Yeah, and it's, so everything, there's kind of 2 families. Everything up to and including 380 is kind of in a family. It never quite gets to where the FBI recommends you start for a duty round, right? But so there's that group, and then 9 and up, it's kind of another family where you start with 9, gets to all those thresholds that the FBI considers critical, and then you get in small incremental gains as you go up, right? So it's kind of like that's the gold standard. We know by just volumes that's the gold standard.
Right.
So what we wanted to do is get to that 9 performance threshold, give people that, but then make the gun smaller, add capacity. Like, what can we do to get to that point and then give people more of what they want?
Well, because the Micro 9 is the thing now, right? Like, that's a big deal. And if I can add capacity, with the same terminal ballistics.
Yeah. So if you have a 9, if I was going to give you more, would you want more capacity, right? If you want to go smaller in guns, the problem is always you're sacrificing some of that dependability of the terminal performance to get to a smaller performance or a smaller carry platform. So we're trying to figure out how to give you that stuff and still get that 9 terminal. So that's where the cartridge really came out of that.
And you feel like, so I mean, what I've seen and read here, we got very close to 9mm terminal performance. Yep. Maybe not identical, but close. I mean, so if you see some of these, right, like, so you're talking this 100 grain HST, 15.5 inches of penetration, which is ideal.
Yeah, and that's through the heavy clothing
test. And again, close to the same expansion as 124 grain HST and 9mm, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, these rounds were picked because it helps you kind of see the correlation to each other, as opposed to like our 147 is going to be a bigger upset, deeper
Sure.
penetrating. The 147-9 it's the gold standard.
That's
right?
what I carry.
So we could show people how it aligns to that. The only reason we didn't is because it's got way less energy than 30 Super Carry, which even though energy doesn't tell you anything about terminal performance, right?
Right.
But we wanted to make sure people could kind of connect the dots.
Right. Yeah,
so,
yeah.
So
The
that's why
numbers
we saw
matter
the
to people.
124. Right. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So
Well, and I'm going to say I shot it yesterday. I can't tell the difference in recoil between 30 Super Carry and 9mm.
right.
Feels exactly the same to me.
On paper, you shouldn't be able to, right? And people see the high pressure and get a little bit freaked out by that high pressure.
What's the pressure in the chamber?
So
there?
map is going to be about 52.
Okay.
So what we're loading here is going to be in the mid 40s. So that we've got room to play with.
Right.
But
For extra P.
right. So when you have 9mm up in the 35s,
Yeah.
people start to be nervous. That being said, all the gun companies we work with, none of them have any concern.
No.
Right, they've shot it all. They've built guns, they've shot it, and nobody's got any concern with it because it's a modern cartridge. It's built to handle it.
Yeah, well, in
Right,
modern,
so-
you got modern
Yeah.
chambers with modern steel, and they're
Yeah.
built to handle those kinds of
Yeah.
pressures and not beat the tar out of the gun.
And we've got proof loads that are, so we're going through all the process, and nobody's got any concerns so far. So
And I think it's a very interesting combination. Of course, it's just going to depend on how many manufacturers are going to build guns for it.
Yeah.
Am I also right that our overall case length and our overall cartridge length is the same as a 9mm?
correct,
So
Yeah.
it'll fit in the frames that are designed for 9mm with minimal retooling, probably.
correct. Yeah, they do. So it's not something you're going to be able to convert. It will take a new magazine,
Sure.
new slide, recoil spring barrel, right?
Right.
So breech
But I
face
mean,
is a
to
little
redesign
different.
a gun, you're not talking about from scratch
Exactly,
necessarily.
yeah. So what we probably will see in the next, so now we've got Smith and Nighthawk. You'll see other manufacturers come around with 9-based size. And then in the future, what you'll see is probably them making them smaller, building it around the frame, right? And from a concealment standpoint, rather than 380, where you lose the length,
Right.
that doesn't help you conceal it.
No,
the overall
width,
gun
yeah.
does. Width helps make a more concealable gun, right? So you can reduce that grip size, frame size down a little bit. So what we'll see in the future probably is a more concealable 30 Super Carry. And then what we're probably going to see after that is carbines and things like that, because we've been getting a lot of gun companies asking us about
Oh, yeah.
helping them develop carbines. So yeah,
And that's where I think you'd see the real hot rounds coming through and people really liking those. So,
Yeah.
well, I mean, Chris, I really appreciate it. Guys, I really think this is an interesting round. Am I sold? This is the greatest thing since beer in a can. No, we got to do some more testing. We got to see how it works.
Yeah.
We got to do all that other stuff. But is it interesting? Man, I think that's cool. And I think this is probably the hot product of SHOT Show 2022.